Boozed and Confused is a comedy and weird topic podcast. Adult language may be used, probably by me. While our episode topics may be educational in nature, we are not responsible if your children start dropping the F-bomb to their kindergarten class. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Mom.
This is Zaddy.
Ew. Oh, God. No. All right. I'm Carolanne.
I'm Matt.
You ruined it. And welcome
okay.
back.
That's okay.
To another episode of Boozed and Confused. I'm really sorry we're late this week. It's 100% my fault. It's just been really busy. The weekend was really busy. Mom and Dad had a parents' day out on Sunday without the baby. And it's our anniversary today.
Yeah.
So what better way to spend it than by spending it with you?
Don't worry. The cats were watching the baby when we were out of town.
What do you think we are? Irresponsible parents?
No, we're extremely irresponsible parents.
Usually we trust the girl cat more than we trust the boy cat. So we just let them know that before we left.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, the executive producer's in bed. I've already had a glass of wine before this. This is, I think, the first time in a while that I've had more than one drink. So this will be good. I won't do any spoilers.
Those are rookie numbers, Caroline. Those are rookie numbers.
Look, when you don't drink for like 9 months. Also, the mommy drinking culture is very strange to me. I will never get into that. But not drinking for 9 months, you'd think you would miss it a lot more than you actually do. Also, you're just really tired at the end of the day, so.
I'm tired anyways.
Yeah. All right, well, let's see. Some housekeeping items before we get into today's topic. The first one, we're on all your favorite social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. The YouTube episodes, I realized, upload themselves somehow from Podbean, except I think a couple weeks have been skipped here and there on accident, so I have to figure out what the deal is there. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. I've been trying to keep up.
I've been meaning to tell you this. To that person who left that comment.
Oh my God, is that still eating you up?
No, it's not eating me up. I just look at it every couple days. See if there's any traction on it.
Yeah.
The person said it's like students sitting around the dinner table, and then I go, I never sat around at a dinner table at school. It was a lunch table. Take that, YouTube guy.
Yeah, thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
But yeah, send us your memes, DM us, any way that you want to chat. You can tweet us. I'm a couple days behind on tweets, but I'm getting there. It's hard to do everything all myself, so I try.
I wouldn't trust me with the social media.
No,
because
absolutely not.
I either wouldn't touch it for weeks on end because I don't touch mine for weeks on end.
Or you'd retweet 200 things in one day about potential world-ending comets about to hit the world, and then you're like, here we go, this is it.
It'd be mainly flat Earth material or something.
All right, see, we're not doing that.
It'd be a little toxic.
Yeah. All right, so the next housekeeping item, if you like the pod and you want to support us, the best way that you could do that is by leaving us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, that's great too. Super appreciated. We don't have a Buy Me a Coffee. We don't have a Patreon. We don't have time to give you extra content to support those things. But it's always appreciated. I like reading the nice notes that people leave. Even if you leave us an okay note, even if you tell us thumbs down, we still talk about it 3 weeks later.
Oh, we're months away from that comment.
I don't think so.
If it'll make us money, I'll make an OnlyFans.
Absolutely
and
not.
It's just gonna be me in the garage half of it's me working out, and the other half is like thinking that there's a mouse in the garage and trying to find the mouse.
Gaslighting yourself into thinking there's a mouse in the garage.
And the third half is going to be me just drinking beers.
Yeah, perfect.
And hitting things with hammers to sound busy.
You would be a good Twitch streamer, but your Twitch stream would be like things I pretend to do in the garage to keep me busy to stay out of the house and from my wife. Great.
I didn't know you were onto me that.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
That was like very succinct. That
I
was
get
like
it.
my exact note. Are you reading my personal journal?
I am.
Dear diary. Dear diary.
All right. The last thing, what are you drinking?
Ooh, well, after we had shared a glass of wine together over dinner.
It was lovely.
You know, sometimes you just gotta make it happen. I've actually just finished making myself an old-fashioned.
With what?
Maker's Mark, which is the best bourbon to have with an old-fashioned. I also made the syrup myself, the simple syrup.
Hashtag so local, hashtag organic, hashtag small business.
It's very simple. And actually, I went on Google just to make sure because I know it's like 1-to-1 ratio. Mm-hmm. The coolest picture I clicked on was like, if you want to make a rich, simple syrup, you do double sugar to the water.
Oh.
I did not.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, so
what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a new Glarus Spotted Cow that we've been nursing in the garage for a very long time. It's time to get rid of it. I'm actually shocked I'm not drinking like an Oktoberfest right now, but I think it's because I didn't want to go into the garage and potentially see a mice.
See a mice.
See a mice. Any mice, a mice, one mouse.
I'm not convinced we have one. I'm not convinced.
Okay, well, you convinced me, and that's enough.
I just need to go in the garage and throw like a Molotov cocktail and we'll just start from scratch.
Okay, well, when you say it like that, now insurance is never going to pay for a new garage.
I mean, I would never do that.
No, never.
Never.
All right, well, should we get into it?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Let's get into it.
This is not a me topic.
It's not a you topic. So it is the 150th anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire, and we're from Chicago, and it's spooky season, so I thought, why not talk about some Chicago ghosts and haunts?
Chicagosts?
Oh, you did say that a couple days ago. I'm not going to call the episode that, but that's very clever.
Kanye West would call it Chicagosts.
Yeah, well, Kanye West has bigger things going on than he needs to figure out.
He needs to escape the Kardashians. I think he already did.
I think he did.
They just kill every man that they're with.
Yeah, it's like that South Park episode of the Succubus.
Great reference.
Yeah,
great reference.
Thank you.
That was Chef.
Yes. All right. Well, the first one kicking off our Chicago Haunts Ghosts episode is the Italian Bride.
Hey, yo, I'm getting married over here. Hey, yo.
Hand gestures involved with that as well. So, although Mount Carmel Cemetery is home to Al Capone and other notorious gangsters, the internment ground is more well known for another famous resident, the mysterious Italian bride. Her real name was Giulia Piccolo Pera, and she perished during childbirth at a very young age in 1921. After she was interred at the cemetery, her mother started getting really strange dreams where Giulia would say she was still alive and needed help. After 6 years of these dreams, her mother finally had the body exhumed. When the casket was opened, everyone was shocked to find that Giulia's body had not decayed one bit since she was put to rest. No explanation has ever been given, but with these mysterious circumstances, it's not surprising that many have reported seeing a ghostly woman in white haunting Giulia's grave.
And I am done.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, no thank you.
And I am done.
Creeps me out.
I was thinking you were going to say there were like scratch marks, which is top 2 biggest fears of mine is being buried alive.
Oh, you really narrowed that list down.
Yeah, top 10, it might fall it's somewhere in the top 5, but
Yeah.
it's definitely up there.
Yeah. All right. So number 2 is Flight 191. You're going to love this one.
I hate flying.
One of the worst airline disasters in American history happened in Chicago in 1979 when Flight 191 dropped from the sky shortly after taking off from O'Hare International. It took the lives of everyone on board, all 271 passengers and crew. After a lengthy investigation, the incident was chalked up to a number of factors, including a stress crack and a flange,
absolutely, flange.
That held the engine pylon. The entire community was changed forever after that fateful day. It wasn't long before reports of ghostly activity surrounding the impact site started to emerge. People started to claim seeing odd, bobbing white lights with no sources ever being found. The creepiest stories came from a small mobile home park adjacent to the site, where for months after the incident, residents kept reporting frantic knocking at their doors, but no one was ever there. To this day, there are still frequent reports of weird knockings, strange sounds, and a few spirits roaming about the arena.
I mean, if you want me to travel with you, right?
Yes.
On an airplane. This is
Yes.
not how you do it.
Didn't we just watch something about, like, the ghosts of 9/11? I feel like...
No, I showed you a hastily put together documentary.
No, that's not...
In quotation marks about how it was Photoshop.
Yeah, no. I'm
It's
not talking about...
It's a crazy documentary.
I'm not... Okay, it's a fucking 10-minute video on Instagram.
There's 2 of them.
Not...
It's
Sorry.
20 minutes.
It's a
at least 20
2-part.
minutes. It's a 2-parter. The Instagram reels wouldn't last that long.
I'm not gonna stoop to that level to call that a documentary.
Double tap for part 2.
But I'm pretty sure there was something that I was watching in September that talked about the ghosts of 9/11, particularly Flight 93 in that field. But
that might have been your other husband.
yeah, you know what?
Might have been your
Because
other
I have
husband.
so much time on my hands, I can sustain 2 relationships successfully. Yes.
You and me both.
Yes. So number 3 is one of my personal favorites that I grew up hearing a lot about, and it's Resurrection Mary.
I actually asked my students the other day about this.
And?
It was my quiet class, so no one talked to me.
Oh, good.
we were talking about folklore, and I have like one really quiet class that you can ask them anything. You can ask them, hey, I see that you're wearing a pair of shoes, and they'll just sit there.
Great. Yes. Thank you for the observation.
Or you'll hear them talking about the football game, and I go, did you guys go to the football game? Nothing.
Do you think it's you?
It's got to be me.
I think it's you.
It's got to be me.
Maybe they're intimidated.
You know what? I am a very intimidating 5'11" and a half and 3/4 king.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So if you want to follow along with these stories, I will warn you now, this Resurrection Mary story is not from the original list that I'm reading from. It's from a Wikipedia article. So I will link that with everything else in the show notes. But just in case you're like going through the article and you're like, wait a second, she went off course. That's why. So the story goes that Mary had spent the evening dancing with a boyfriend at the O. Henry Ballroom, which is actually in Willow Springs. Did you know that?
I don't know what Willow Springs is.
Are you kidding me? Okay. Well,
where's Willow Springs?
it's a suburb.
Yeah, obviously. It sounds like a suburb. Which one is it?
It's a suburb.
Is it west? Is it south? Is it north?
West.
Oh, I'm from the western suburbs. I should know this.
All right. So at some point, they got into an argument and Mary stormed out. She left the ballroom and started walking up Archer Avenue. She had not gotten very far when she was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver who fled the scene, leaving Mary to die. Her parents found her and were grief-stricken at the sight of her dead body, which I feel like is a given. They buried her in Resurrection Cemetery wearing a beautiful white dancing dress and matching dance shoes. The hit-and-run driver was never found.
Classic.
So some reported sightings. Jerry Paulus, a Chicago Southsider, reported that in 1939 he met a person whom he came to believe was Resurrection Mary at the Liberty Grove and Hall at 47th and Mozart. They danced and even kissed, and she asked him to drive her home along Archer Avenue, exiting the car and disappearing in front of the cemetery. In 1973, Resurrection Mary was said to have shown up at Harlow's nightclub on Cicero Avenue on the southwest side. That same year, a cab driver came into Chet's Melody Lounge across the street from Resurrection Mary to inquire about a young lady who had left without paying her fare. There were said to have been sightings in 1976, 1978, 1980, and 1989, which involved cars striking or nearly striking Mary outside of the cemetery. She disappears, however, by the time that the person exits the car. She also reportedly burned her handprints into the wrought iron fence around the cemetery in August 1976, although officials at the cemetery have stated that a truck had damaged the fence and that there's no evidence of a ghost. Which, boo, okay? Just let people have their fun.
Do you think she would have learned from the first time getting hit to not get hit other times? I'm sorry, Mary.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, Mary. Please don't haunt
All right,
me.
well, if Mary comes to our house tonight, you're gonna know why.
I think that's outside of her range.
I don't know.
She has to get a ride there first.
In a January 31st, 1979 article in the Suburban Trib, a columnist detailed the story of a cab driver, Ralph, who picked up a young woman, quote, a looker, a blonde. She was young enough to be my daughter, 21 tops, near a small shopping center on Archer Avenue. So his statement is as follows. A couple miles up Archer there... right up there on Archer.
Right up there, two tree miles.
She jumped with the start like a horse and said, here. I hit the brakes. I looked around and didn't see no kind of house. Where? I said. And then she sticks out her arm and points across the road to my left and says, there. And that's where it happened. I looked to my left like this at a little shack. And when I turned, she was gone. Vanished. And the car door never opened. May the good Lord strike me dead. It never happened. Oh, sorry, it never opened, not happened.
Oh,
never,
you know when
opened.
He talk like that, he means it.
Why? That good South Side accent.
That good South Side guy.
Yeah. Oh, I do love a good Chicago accent. So Geist reported Ralph as not an idiot or a maniac, but rather, in Ralph's own words, a typical 52-year-old working guy, a veteran, a father, Little League baseball coach, churchgoer, the whole shot. He goes on to say, the simple explanation is that you picked up the Resurrection Mary. Ugh. Yeah. No, thank you.
Well, they always say before you pick up your ride, you should confirm that it's the right passenger and the right driver. That's just simple safety, people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just simple safety.
Yeah. All right. So that's Resurrection Mary. This one I didn't actually know about. This next one I didn't know about. So this is the haunted water tower.
It's a really cool picture.
It's a really cool picture, but
water tower is it?
It's not. It's the water tower downtown. If you were to Google Chicago water tower, there's two things you'll find. The huge modern building, and then right across the street from it, there's like an actual brick water tower building. That was the original water tower building, and that was one of the only buildings to stay standing after the Chicago fire.
Okay, this picture...
It's very deceiving and not accurate.
This picture is not the water tower.
No, I don't know why they used this picture in the article. So if you read the article, just ignore the picture that they have for this story and go Google the Chicago Fire Water Tower.
The water tower is my favorite location in the city.
Why?
I don't like the Gold Mile. Like, I hate the Gold Mile.
The Mag Mile?
Whatever, Mag Mile, whatever. The bougie-ass mile. I just love the water tower. You've got the John Hancock building. You've got the Hershey's store.
You've got the John Hancock.
You got the John Hancock. No, and then you've got this dinky little water tower, and that was the tallest point in the city at one point.
Oh yeah, because everything else was gone.
I mean, before they got burned to the ground.
All right, so this is a water tower one.
Oh, classic students are on the dinner table.
The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 still stands as one of the worst events to ever happen in Chicago. I really can't think of anything worse, actually, than our entire city burning down.
I think our soccer team.
Yeah, that too. It took the lives of 300 people and over 100,000 lost their homes. One thing that miraculously stayed standing amongst the destruction was the water tower, mostly thanks to the work of one brave worker. The man stayed behind as the fire raced towards the tower, manning the pumps instead of fleeing. Just before the fire consumed him, he took his life to avoid being burned alive. Now his ghost haunts the very water tower that he tried to protect. Tourists and locals report seeing a shadowy figure of a dangling man from the tower's upstairs windows. I didn't know that one before. I feel like
never.
Yeah,
never
so
knew
I've
that.
I've done a couple of Chicago ghost tours, and if you ever come to visit Chicago, actually even if you just live here, it's a great tour, and if you like history, it's really cool. There's like a few different kinds you could do, but I feel like none of the ones I've ever done have ever gone to the water tower. But
You got to go to the
digress.
water tower when you're shopping at the John Hancock Center.
who goes shopping at the John Hancock?
People.
I certainly would not. All right, so this next one is one that I did actually learn about for the first time on a Chicago ghost tour. And I had no idea, which is crazy because I work downtown and I pass by this area all the time, pre-COVID. And there's like little signs and stuff for it, but I never stopped to read it. So this is the Eastland Disaster. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing I did for Resurrection Mary. So I'll give a little blur, but then I have like more I'm going to supplement it with. So the capsizing of the Eastland steamer in Chicago is one of the worst boating disasters of all time. As the gigantic ship made its way towards Michigan City, a horrible event caused the ship to tip over. So pretty much what happened is like all these people are on this boat and someone had directed everybody's attention to something on like one side of the boat. So literally everybody goes to one side of the boat and the entire thing just capsizes. At least that's the story I was told.
Because of all the people who went to one side?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. I also think part of the other thing was, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, somebody fact check me because I'm doing this in real time. I think the ship was also over capacity. That's like coming to mind. So out of the estimated 2,500 people who were on board, the casualty tally reached nearly 850. The mystery of why exactly the boat tipped over was never solved. Well, according to my tour guide on the Chicago Ghost Tour, that's what it was. But the story was far from over. The Armory building where most of the departed were taken during the disaster eventually was taken over by Oprah Winfrey in her studio. A lot of the crew who worked on the show claimed that the ghosts of the passengers often haunted the building. They heard strange noises like children's laughter and the clinking of phantom glasses, and even saw apparitions, the most popular one being the one they dubbed the Gray Lady. Even the site of the actual disaster is supposedly haunted, with reports of people passing by the spot hearing the blood-curdling screams of the doomed passengers. So the part that I'm supplementing this with is like a whole blog. I'm not going to read the whole blog for obvious reasons, but I'll take snippets. I really recommend reading it. It's really good. So if that's your thing, it'll be in the show notes. The hundreds of bodies that were recovered on the morning of the disaster were taken to the nearby Reed Murdoch building and to local funeral homes and mortuaries. The only public building that was large enough to be used as a morgue was the 2nd Regiment National Guard Armory, which is located on Carpenter Street between Randolph Street and Washington Boulevard. The dead were laid out on the floor of the armory in rows of 85 and assigned identifying numbers. Any personal possessions that were found with the corpses were placed in envelopes bearing the same number as the body. I will warn you that the article does have a picture of all the bodies, like laying next to each other. So if that's not really your thing, maybe don't click into it. I don't know. Chicagoans with loved ones who had perished in the disaster filed through the rows of bodies, searching for familiar faces, but in the mentioned 22 cases, there was no one left to identify them. The names of these unidentified victims were learned through the efforts of neighbors who came searching for their friends. The weeping, crying, and moaning of the bereaved echoed off the walls of the armory for days. The American Red Cross treated 30 women for hysteria and exhaustion in the days following the disaster. So then it kind of talks about the last body being identified was a 7-year-old boy named Willie Novotny of Cicero. And his parents and older sister had also passed away on the Eastland, and his body was only identified from extended family members. So on the morning of the Eastland disaster, many of the bodies of the victims were taken to the armory, but after years passed, there was no longer a need for a National Guard armory to be located so close to downtown. Hence, it gets sold off. Then it becomes Harpo Studios from Oprah Winfrey. And then it starts to talk about the ghost story. So a number of staff members, security guards, and maintenance workers claim that the ghosts of the disaster victims restlessly wandered the building. Many employees had encounters with things that could not be easily explained away, including the sighting of a woman in a long gray dress who walked the corridors and then mysteriously vanished into the wall. There were many occasions when this woman was spotted, but each time she was approached, she always disappeared. Some surmised that she was the spirit of a mourner who came looking for her family and left a bit of herself behind at the spot where she felt her greatest pain. The woman in the gray may not have been alone in her spectral travels throughout the old armory. Staff members also claimed to hear whispers, the sounds of people sobbing, moaning noises, and phantom footsteps. The footsteps, which sounded as though they belonged to a group of several people, were usually heard on a staircase in the lobby. Doors that were located often opened and closed by themselves, and those who experienced these strange events came to believe that the tragedy of yesterday was still replaying itself on the former armory in its later incarnation. There were reports of the ship itself being haunted that date back to the time just after the disaster and prior to its sale to the Navy. During that period, it was docked along the Halstead Street Bridge and regarded with superstition by passers-by. There was a caretaker who lived on it who said he'd be awakened by moaning noises nightly. And he said some of it was really just probably the sound of the ship falling apart. And so the site on the river where the disaster occurred also has some pretty strange stories. So it's on the Clark Street Bridge. People claim to hear moaning, crying sounds coming from the river, along with blood-curdling screams and pleas for help.
Never heard this on that bridge. Been there plenty of times. Never heard it, thankfully.
In addition, some witnesses state that the cries are accompanied by the sounds of someone splashing in the river and even the apparitions of people helplessly flailing about in the water. During several incidents, witnesses have claimed for help from emergency services, believing that someone was actually drowning in the river. At least one man jumped in the water to try to save what he thought was a person who was unable to swim. And when he got back to the surface, he found that he was in the river alone and probably looking crazy. And he had no explanation for what he saw other than that it was a ghost. So yeah, the Eastland disaster is a little creepy.
Just a little bit. Again, I'm glad I haven't heard any people when I was on that bridge back in my younger days.
Yeah.
Because I would have been that guy in the water.
Oh, yeah. Here I go. All right. So the next one is the Grime Sisters. The mysterious disappearance of sisters Patricia and Barbara Grimes in 1956 shook Chicago to its to its core, and also, I guess, the shore. So they were murdered, for anyone who's unaware, not familiar with the story. The massive manhunt to find these girls took some wild turns, but tragically ended with their cadavers being found in the woods. The search to find out who slew them took a massive toll on the public and the police, and their cases still remain unsolved. Even though police supposedly questioned thousands of people over the course of the investigation, they could never find the evidence that they needed. Sadly, their cadavers were dumped at the edge of a ravine just a few feet from the shoulder of the road. Near the spot where they were found, a small house was nestled among the trees. The family who lived there mysteriously abandoned the house not long after, and eventually vandals burned the house down. Some believe the family left the house because it was haunted by the ghosts of the Grime Sisters, and the many reports of strange happenings that trickle in from people who explore the area around the house seem to confirm that theory. The next one, if you like Chicago mobs at all, this one is probably not surprising to you. This is on, I think, the list of every Chicago ghost tour that happens. But this is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Ooh, that one.
Yeah. So it was a bloody onslaught that both wiped out any opposition to Al Capone's empire and was also the start of his downfall. Taxes. It's always taxes. As it convinced the public that Capone needed to be stopped. 7 people lost their lives in a vicious execution on Clark Street, and their spirits supposedly still haunt the spot to this very day. People claim to hear screams and machine gun fire as they pass the site of the mass slaying, which really, I mean, it could just be Chicago soundscape.
That's just normal Chicago. That's Tuesday night.
And can't help feeling immense fear when they're in the area. It also affects pets who bark or whine when they walk by the place. Yep. The next one is the Irish Castle. I'm very fond of this one. So in 1886, Robert Givens built a mighty castle in Chicago resembling the ancient estates of his home country, Ireland. Over the years, it was owned by a variety of different groups, but is now operated by the Beverly Unitarian Church. Actually, I think also it's a school. I think it's a school now. Really? The ghost that haunts the grounds is said to be that of a young girl left over from the time when the castle was a boarding school. The girl reportedly perished in the early 1930s after being stricken with the flu. One of the first encounters with her spirit happened in the 1960s when a custodian saw the girl, talked with her, but then was shocked to discover that she completely disappeared. There are still reports of her spirit wandering around, along with odd flickering lights and inexplicable sounds. So this is our second to last one. And if you are into ghosts at all, I think you've probably heard of this one. It's Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. And I've been there many a times, and I'm a big fan. So same thing, I'll kind of supplement some of this info with some Wikipedia information. One of the most haunted cemeteries in Chicago, Bachelor's Grove, has had more than 100 documented reports of paranormal activity. No one new has been interred there for years, but it's still one of the most well-known haunted areas in the city. There's not a definite answer to what caused the hauntings in the first place, but most people believe one or two things. Either a bunch of teenagers in the 60s arrived and trashed the entire cemetery, which awoke the spirits from their peaceful slumber, or reports regarding the remains of chickens and other small animals found around that area point to more occult activities. Now, people who visit the area usually report phantom cars that seem to appear and disappear at random, or claim to see the apparition of a farmer wandering around, a farmer who perished back in the 1870s when he got tangled in his horse's reins and dragged into a small pond. I have a lot of personal stories about this, actually, if you don't mind me sharing.
Let's go. Yes.
I had a teacher in grammar school he was a history teacher. Like the second half of the year basically just talked about all of his travels and like ghost stories, and Bachelor's Grove, because it's like so easily accessible, was like one that he just loved to talk about. So one of the stories he talked about is this young couple. I think they're like maybe after a dance or something. So they go to Bachelor's Grove and they pull up in the car. And the guy gets out for some reason. He like sees something or something happens. So he gets out of the car. And as the girl is sitting there waiting, it's dark out, obviously. She's sitting there waiting, and he just is not coming back. So she finally then starts hearing it's like windy. So she's like hearing branches and like stuff brush up against the hood of the car because they're parked under trees. It's a lot of like low hanging stuff. It's not really super well kept. And so finally she gets out of the car, and the scraping she's hearing on the top of the car is her boyfriend hanging from a tree.
Oh, wise guy, eh?
Yeah. So that was one story that we were told. It's also reported that Capone and his buddies used to dump bodies in that pond there, and that's part of, I think, why people think it's so haunted.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely was one of those teachers who told their students that that's what that area was for.
Specifically for dumping bodies.
For dumping bodies.
Yeah. Another one that I heard is that you would see like an apparition of a house, like an old 1800s like homestead house across the pond. Maybe that was like that farmer's house.
The pond's not that big.
It's not that big, no. But you got to remember too, there's like like a sort of river creek that kind of runs over there too.
Yeah, a little of a creek.
So I think at some point it was probably a little bit more full of a body of water. I think that water is a little bit more like manually contained now. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but like for flood prevention purposes.
I don't know. Something ain't right down at the creek.
So some of the reported phenomenon, and I'm pulling this from Wikipedia. So there's orbs and like phantom vehicles. Those are super common. There's also the White Lady, or called the White Madonna. She walks the grounds carrying an infant during a full moon. There's the Phantom Farmhouse. Oh, that was the one. Yeah, okay. A ghostly farmhouse which is purported to shimmer, float, and then vanish. This was most often reported during the 1950s. There are also reports by witnesses of the house shrinking as they approach it, then disappearing altogether. A farmer and his plow horse, both victims of a plowing accident, dragged to their deaths into the nearby slough. A two-headed ghost near the same slough. Religious monks, as late as 1984, witnesses reported seeing numerous figures dressed in monks' robes through the cemetery, which I feel like that could just be, I mean, it's like pretty popular cemetery. There's people there doing like EVPs and shit all the time.
I know when we went like those years ago, there was like at least 8 people with, like dowsing rods and talking and looking for stuff. You know what? I hate forests at nighttime. I wouldn't go there at nighttime.
No, thank you.
But would love to see something, but definitely won't do it.
Yeah, no. A black dog. So witnesses in the 1990s reported seeing this manifestation at the cemetery's entrance. It would disappear when they approached it. And then this one is my favorite one because I feel like it's one of the most famous ghost pictures of all time, like regardless of where you are in the world. So there's the woman sitting on the grave, and it's this photograph that ran in the Sun-Times, and it shows this transparent woman sitting on a tombstone, and the apparition was not visible when the photograph was taken.
Oh, you know what? I just Googled it.
You know this picture. You've seen this picture before.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, it's not. It's actually very serene, but oof.
Yeah, it's very creepy. And I don't know. I feel like if you talk to anybody in Chicago who's been there, they probably have like a weird story. There's also a grave of an infant there. I believe at least
and
one.
They put toys on it.
Yeah, and they people, like, as a sign of respect, always bring something.
We didn't.
We did not. Thank you for calling us out because I forgot about it until we got there. So thank you very much. Okay. There's a couple others on this list that I'm not going to go over, but it's the sausage vat murder and the Robinson Woods.
The sausage murderer.
But this last one I'm going to do is the Devil Baby of Hull House. And I love this one because I first found out about it when I was on a ghost tour. And then I did what I always do, which is go down a rabbit hole. The Hull House is located on UIC's campus. It's actually part of their like campus. And so you can tour it. And I think I know the first floor they use for like events and stuff. I think the top they turned into a museum. So if you're ever in the area and you want to visit it, it's really cool. I've visited once or twice. It's very, very neat. The Hull House in Chicago started with such good intentions. It was said to be a beacon of hope, a community house with the goal of educating and helping newly arrived European immigrants back in the late 1800s. But its legacy would be overshadowed by something far more sinister, as it was believed that the Hull House was harboring the Devil Baby. The legend goes that the baby was born to a devout Catholic and her supremely atheist husband. It was said to have pointed ears, horns, and a tail. Unable to do anything about it, the couple was forced to lock the baby up in the attic at the Hull House. The story quickly spread, and soon the Hull House was turning away crowds of people who knocked on the door looking to catch a glimpse of the Devil Baby. Although the legend isn't as strongly believed today, it's still widely believed that there was a deformed child being held in the attic of the house, and sometimes at night you can still see a deformed face looking out the attic window.
Nope.
So the Hull House is fascinating because when they were first building it up, it was I mean, you'd have to like be familiar with UIC, but the building itself was absolutely massive. And the building that still stands is like this little Victorian, like old school looking sized house. So it's definitely not as big. But there's also some like reported hauntings in the house from this like fountain that's in the garden. I think they call it like the devil fountain. Some really creepy shit. It makes me sad to think that there is actually just a child with like physical deformities after birth that is probably the likely cause of this, but there's like other stuff behind the devil baby name, not just like the physical appearance. Mm-hmm. I think it was something like stuff had happened when they were trying to like bless the baby and like use holy water. So yeah. Okay, so behind the scenes moment, because I really wanted to remember this accurately. So they bring this baby. So I guess I'll back up a little bit. So according to the legend, right, we mentioned that the woman was a devout Catholic, her husband was an atheist, and the legend has it that she tried to put up a picture of the Virgin Mary in their home, and he tore it down saying he'd rather have the devil in the house.
Oh.
And so when they had their first child, then the baby came out with like pointed ears, horns, and a tail, and they didn't know what to do with the baby, so they took it to the Hull House. So the Hull House was this like community center for women, basically, women and children. And so the staff tried to have the baby baptized, but when it escaped, and, it just laughed at the priest, then allegedly they just locked it in the attic until it died. So it said that this story was what inspired the book and movie Rosemary's Baby.
The website just has this like generic picture of a baby, and I just have that on my screen right now, and I'm just really sad. I just want to give every baby a hug, a really big, or just like a really big hug.
Being a parent changes you. It does.
In ways that I can't even explain.
Yeah. There's another ghost at the Hull House. It's the lady in white. There's like a pretty infamous photo of like a person on the stairs. There's like this beautiful, very narrow, steep set of stairs going up at the Hull House, and you can see it right when looking in the doorway, but there's like a person standing or sitting on the stairway, and the Hull House has a lot of stories. So that's all that I have today. I'm sorry we were late. We'll see if we have something ready for Monday, because I'm going to publish this. The time is 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, so I'm going to publish this right away. And this will be this week's episode. And if we get something for Monday, great. If not...
Oh, next Monday? No, today feels like about 11:30 p.m. on a Monday. I'm so tired.
Same. Also same. So thanks so much for joining us this week. I don't know what the next topic is going to be, but maybe we'll keep it in the spirit of like spooky season.
Oh, if it's a me topic, it's going to be spooky.
And we'll see you next time. We don't know when, but we'll see you next time.
Maybe we'll even be on time.
Maybe.
Doubt it. Bye.
Okay, bye.